Hello, hello. It's almost 7:30. It's almost 7:30 on Tuesday, the 9th of August. So I thought I would just come drop in and do a live. I'll just give it a little minute because I did say I would be here at 7:30. So for you that are listening to the podcast, that will go out later on after this live. I'm doing a live on Facebook to my Power of Communication course. And those people that have joined me for that 4-hour, 2-week course spread over 2 evenings of 2 hours each with challenges in between. So it's spot on 7:30 now. So we'll continue. Tonight's theme in the live is about being present in your communication and why this is so important and how you can do it and the difference that it will make to your conversation. So first of all, I would just like to say thank you for being part of this group and thank you for tuning into the podcast if you happen to be listening to this later on. So why is it important? So if you think about how people are with you and how conversations whereby you have been really listened to or somebody's paid a particular interest to you have made a difference in your life. And on the flip side of that, if you also think of those interactions that you've had with people who haven't been present, who have half-heartedly pretended to be present by using one of the non-active listening skills. So there are 4 modes of listening. So let's just refresh on that, which are competitive, combative, active, and passive listening. Now, often when somebody is not present, it's because they're thinking about something else, they're doing something else, or they're having an internal dialogue with themselves. But whatever the distraction is, it means that they are only listening to you passively and they're not being fully present with you. And you'll know what that feels like, whether it's your family, your friends, your parents, whoever that might be. You'll know that you haven't been listened to, and you'll walk away from that conversation thinking, didn't really feel listened to during that conversation, didn't feel great about it, it was just a conversation. So what happens when we are fully present? And being fully present is actually a really difficult conscious action to do. And it's hard work and takes time, as you will already know for those of you that have done the course, that in the challenges that we have faced over those 2 weeks, I've asked you to start to be more present. And it's hard, it's really hard. And active listening is hard because it is a skill and it's something that you build up to, which is why we have to practice it. And it's interesting because communication is a skill that is often not practiced. And so the more we practice, the easier it becomes, like any other skill. And the result of actually being present, which means we're able to quieten our inner dialogue, we are able to put all of our judgments aside, even when they're screaming at us and like they're screaming at us like, no, that's not right, or I want to be right, I want to be right, I want to be right, because what I've got to say is right. Even when all of that is going on, and we have to manage that voice and that internal dialogue and quieten that judgment, which is easier said than done. I get that, because we naturally judge, and many people say that I don't judge people, but we do. It's a defense mechanism, from our primitive brain. The great thing about it is that when we know that we're doing it, we can do something about it, like question our judgment, like, why am I judging this person? What is it about them that's causing me to make that judgment? And what is it about me that's causing me to make that judgment? Because communication starts with us. And yes, we love to try and blame other people for everything that goes wrong in our lives, including me, and use blame language like, you make me feel, and you did this and you did that. Or when somebody asks us a question that we find difficult, we'll deflect it, or we'll become defensive and say, well, it wasn't me. We do all those things just like kids do. Do you remember you're a kid and you're like, can you own up? If you've done something, you must own up. And as adults, we're just as bad. We become defensive when challenged, we become offensive when challenged, because our human emotions get in the way. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about understanding that. So when we do go into that active listening mode and we switch in, and it is a switch in, it's like, you're driving down the motorway, or you're driving a really familiar route, and sometimes you forget how you actually got there because it's such a familiar route, because it's muscle memory. but actually then something happens, like a storm breaks, and you sit up in your chair and you grab your steering wheel a little bit harder, and your senses are more alive because you've kind of woken yourself up, and now you're fully present dealing with the situation that you have in front of you in that driving. Well, communication is the same, but you have to switch into it, you have to switch up to it, you have to be present, you have to be alive to it, and you have to make it a conscious decision. So you might be standing there thinking, in a conversation with somebody, thinking, gosh, I need to be somewhere else, I need to do this. So you have a choice. You either say to that person very politely, do you know what, this sounds really important to you, I don't have much time at the moment, can I reconnect with you later on, where I can give you far more time to listen to what you've got to say? Or you make a conscious decision to go, right, I'm going to practice active listening, and I'm going to be in the present, and I'm going to be with this person. And the results you will get from just being, but by consciously doing that and having that conversation with yourself and doing that kind of active listening driving position where you wake yourself up and get in the moment, that will improve your relationships twofold. Now, we know from we know that everything comes from child psychology, because actually as adults, we're kids, we just, as my friend said, I think I've said this to you before, is that as adults we're exactly the same as children, we just have better excuses. And I think that's a great saying, and I borrow that with pride. Thank you, Nigel. And but what does that mean? It means that when we become emotional, or when we want to make it about us, we switch out and we go to our emotional brain, or we don't focus and we don't active listen. But there's been research that if you spend 15 minutes a week, I think it is, with your child doing one-to-one things without any distraction, without anybody else interrupting, and interacting with them in something that they really want to do, the behavior change that they saw in kids was phenomenal. And actually, if you practice that in your relationships, if you spend 15 minutes a week just being really present with your partner or your family or your parents, whoever it might be, that relationship will change. And if you stop in the street and have a conversation, not even for 15 minutes, but you're fully present, then what happens is that other person feels valued and validated. And the bottom line is, ladies and gents, we all want to feel valued and validated, because it makes us feel like we have a purpose. And so many of us just want to be listened to. And I always come back to this sentence, but people who feel listened to are more likely to listen to you. So people who feel listened to are more likely to listen to you. So that's how we can be present. And that's why it's so important, because it shows the other person that we are spending a moment with them. And in this crazy world that we live in at the moment, where everything is 150 billion miles an hour, just taking that time out to be present with another human being. We are relationship interactive people. That's what being human is. We like to be around other humans. The majority of us, we like to have that interaction, that human interaction. It makes us feel good, and when we're listened to, it makes us feel really good, and it doesn't take too long. So that's the power, but it's hard. You have to practice. Go back to that week one challenge, start to be present in those conversations, start to recognize what listening mode people are using, and just start to practice consciously going, right, I'm going to be present, and I'm going to actively listen, and I'm just going to be here. Have a great evening. I'm going to do more of these lives, so please join me if you can. Any questions, please just pop them into the Facebook group and I'll answer them, or email if that's easier. We'll send out a recording to everybody in the group on email anyway. Okay, take care. Have a lovely evening. Nice to see you.